Hello guys, welcome all of you to today's Farmcast, and this is a weekly Farmcast to be more specific. And as I said, guys, I'll be recording and posting one Farmcast in a week, and my target is Monday, right? But I could not record last Monday because I was recording for Mero, and it was quite late after I came home, so I skipped it. And today I got some time, and I had to thought as well as to what to tell you because previously we had drugs of choice to discuss. So now I would have to think what to discuss. Something once in a week that would be more productive and interesting as well, right? So guys, today what I've chosen is we'll be discussing hepatotoxic drugs, right? In entire pharmacology, I have narrowed down some 18 to 20 hepatotoxic drugs which are more important and which are more commonly asked, right? So we'll discuss that, and at last I will discuss few of your questions that you guys have asked, right? So let's begin with our hepatotoxic drugs, guys. The first one is amiodarone, and amiodarone, remember, it can cause liver granulomas. And mostly they ask you, they'll combine, amiodarone has a list of side effects, long list. So in that they usually combine 3 side effects and they give one as nephrotoxicity. So remember, nephrotoxicity is not seen with amiodarone, rather it is hepatotoxic. Second drug for today, guys, these are statins. And statins are also hepatotoxic drugs, and usually whenever you start a patient on statins, you need to monitor the ALT/AST, that is the liver function test, has to be monitored at least once in every 3 to 6 months. Another hypolipidemic which is not preferred nowadays because of many reasons, and one of the reasons is hepatotoxicity, is you might have got the name as well, it is niacin, guys. Niacin is not preferred because of 2 important reasons. One is insulin resistance and diabetes mellitus can be seen, and second is hepatotoxicity. It is hell of a hepatotoxic drug. Number 4, guys, valproate. So it is known to all of you, valproate has been asked a lot of times. It's quite a potent hepatotoxic drug, and that is the reason why it is never used in children less than 2 years. Now, among anti-epileptic, it is a known hepatotoxic drug, except in 2019, a new anti-epileptic was added that is called as cannabidiol. So cannabidiol is a derivative of cannabis, and this is also a hepatotoxic drug, right? Cannabidiol, which has been approved for mixed seizure syndrome like LGS, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, or Dravet syndrome. These are mixed seizure syndrome which are very difficult to treat. So 2 anti-epileptics which you need to remember which are hepatotoxic: valproate, cannabidiol. Now coming to another drug, it is HIV. So guys, in HIV, one drug which is most important in hepatotoxicity is nevirapine. Nevirapine is important because in some patients it can cause fatal hepatic necrosis can be seen. That is the reason why nowadays we prefer efavirenz more for treatment as compared to nevirapine. Another anti-HIV drug which is hepatotoxic is zidovudine, guys. So these are 2 important drugs you need to remember, nevirapine and zidovudine. Though with zidovudine, the more important side effect or the dose limiting side effect is not hepatotoxicity. Can you think which is the dose limiting toxicity of zidovudine? It is, guys, bone marrow suppression, right? Now coming to an antibiotic that can cause hepatotoxicity, it is, so usually antibiotics, most are nephrotoxic, right? Only few are hepatotoxic, like erythromycin. And remember, it is the acetylate salt of erythromycin that can cause cholestatic jaundice, and it is more common in pregnancy, right? So now talking about some anti-TB drugs. So yes, anti-TB drugs, first line 3 are hepatotoxic. Most hepatotoxic is pyrazinamide, followed by isoniazid, followed by rifampicin. That is the order of hepatotoxicity: pyrazinamide, followed by isoniazid, followed by rifampicin. Now some anti-cancer drugs: 6-mercaptopurine, 6-thioguanine, these are hepatotoxic. Methotrexate is hell of a hepatotoxic drug. It can cause liver cirrhosis. Now one thing they ask you, when do you see cirrhosis? High dose use or long term use? Guys, remember, it is not seen because of high dose use. Rather, it is seen because of low dose use in disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, where we use it for a very long period of time. So chronic exposure is the risk for cirrhosis. And the third drug which is hepatotoxic in anti-cancer drugs is imatinib, a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, the BCR-ABL tyrosine kinase inhibitor. A hepatotoxic anti-diabetic drug. Can you think, guys, which anti-diabetic drug is hepatotoxic? Guys, it is pioglitazone. Pioglitazone can cause hepatotoxicity. NSAIDs, which NSAID is hepatotoxic, guys, 3 of them. One is acetaminophen, and it can cause centrilobular necrosis, right? Centrilobular necrosis can be seen. And what is the drug of choice for hepatotoxicity caused by acetaminophen? It has been asked a lot of times. Your answer is N-acetylcysteine, right? Next, guys, diclofenac. Diclofenac is also a potent hepatotoxic drug, and in fact, derivative of diclofenac is lumiracoxib. It's a selective COX inhibitor derived from diclofenac, and lumiracoxib was banned for same reason, that is hepatotoxicity. Nimesulide is hepatotoxic, and that is the reason why it is contraindicated in children less than 12 years, right? And in adults, it should not be used for more than 10 days, right, on a trot. Number 18, guys, anti-asthmatic drugs, right? Drugs used in asthma, which are hepatotoxic, right? Xylitol is hepatotoxic, and it is more hepatotoxic as compared to montelukast and zafirlukast. So these are drugs acting upon the leukotriene pathway. Xylitol more than montelukast and zafirlukast. Next, guys, immunomodulators, which are hepatotoxic. 2 you need to remember: cyclosporin and tacrolimus. So usually we know that these are nephrotoxic, but remember they are hepatotoxic as well, right? And hepatotoxicity is more with tacrolimus as compared to cyclosporin. So overall, tacrolimus is more toxic. All kind of toxicity is seen more with tacrolimus, right? That is the reason why we prefer cyclosporin for treatment. But tacrolimus is more potent, so it is reserved for cases where cyclosporin is ineffective. So that is where the benefit is more than risk. And the last drug for today, guys, here in the section of hepatotoxicity is azathioprine. So azathioprine is also an immunosuppressant, and it is hepatotoxic. The reason being, azathioprine is a prodrug of 6-mercaptopurine and 6-thioguanine, which are also, it is a prodrug of 6-mercaptopurine, which is also a hepatotoxic drug. Right, so that's all we had to discuss today in this section of drugs, right? So now let me have a look at some of the doubts that you guys have asked. And many of the doubts in last week I have also answered in the inbox of Insta or Facebook, wherever you have asked. I've directly answered. Some which are remaining in the in the YouTube. So I'll address those doubts, right? So one doubt, guys, Mrunal is asking, sir, please can you guide us about the INI-CET pattern? How many attempts and how is the marking system exactly? See, guys, nobody knows as of now. Nobody knows anything, but be rest assured there would be negative marking as it used to be earlier, right? Minus one third negative marking. I think that would be there, and because otherwise it is difficult to make a list of rank without these negative markings, right? So it will be there. How the pattern would be, guys, nobody knows as of now. Pattern nobody knows. There would be MCQs, that is for sure, but how many would be MCQs and how many would be the other pattern, right? Will we have matching questions or assertion reasoning, or what will be there? Nobody knows as of now, so we cannot say anything about that. So what you need to know, see, your best bet as of now, say when there is too much of uncertainty, right? Your best bet is your notes. So try to focus more on your notes, because at the end of the day you will see most of the questions would be there from your notes, right? So, and see, as I can see, there would not be much repeats. I mean, questions will not be repeated directly, but the topics are repeated in each and every exam, and all those topics are in your notes, guys. So you know that from where the questions would be asked. So be bullish on your notes as long as we don't know anything about the pattern, right? Alright, guys, another doubt has been asked by Monkey Minds. So that's a great name. He's asking, sir, AIMS PG MCQs are so deep and tough, even they carry negative marks. Out of 12 questions, how many questions we should attempt? Can average student clear INI-CET? Guys, there is no rule as such that an average student cannot clear INI-CET or any exam for that matter, because these are competitive exams, and if you adequately strategize plus you need to put a lot of hard work, then that you can clear any exam in this world, guys. Any exam. We all are humans, right? Our competitors are humans. They are not from another planet, right? They are not aliens. So we all are humans, and we just need to outdo each other in that competition. So all you need is you need to have a sound strategy, and you need to have a plan which you need to execute honestly and do a lot of hard work, and your priorities should be straight. So for example, when I was giving the exam, I have told this many times that my aim was to get a seat, pharmacology seat. Now where do I get a seat? I did not mind it, right? As long as it was in Delhi, because in Delhi stipend was good, and I also had financial issues at that time, right? So I want a pharma seat in Delhi badly. And for me, if you look at so I set my priorities. What are the chances that I'll give AIIMS exam and I'll get a pharma seat in Delhi? Right, the chances are slim, right? Very slim. And we did not have even other AIIMS at that time. So then I looked at AIPG, which is nowadays called as NEET PG, and my chances of getting a pharma seat in Delhi were much higher in AIPG. So my focus was on AIPG. It does not mean that I did not appear for AIIMS. I appeared for AIIMS, but my revision schedule was planned according to NEET, right? And I just appeared for AIIMS exam midway, so it was a kind of a practice exam for me. I practice exam just before the AIPG or the NEET exam. So see, I have seen students in my life, though not a lot, who don't even prepare for NEET PG. They prepare only for either some prepare for AIIMS, some prepare for JIPMER, some prepare for PGI. Those guys, they have to be courageous enough, right, to prepare for exams with such a small number of seats. So all it depends upon what are your priorities, right? What do you want in your life? Because believe me, see, a lot of times I get this query from students, which is important, a branch or a place of choice, right? So a branch is more important or college is more important, guys, in your life. See, I've already explained this once, that which is important in your life. Just think, which is more important? Is the marriage venue of choice more important or the bride of choice? Now if you can find the answer, you will get my message. That is obviously the branch is more important, because that is what will remain with you lifelong. And believe me, when you go, suppose you go for a clinical and you go to a private practice, then all these gold medals and your college or institute, they're not going to help you. It's all about how you deal with your patients, how good you are in management of patients, how good you are with your social behavior, and all these things, they come into play. So never take these as the yardsticks, and wherever you get a seat, guys, accept that gracefully and move ahead in life, right? Move ahead in life, guys. We have a very small life, right? We are not supposed to live for thousands of years. So see, I know that lifespan is limited. If I knew that I would live for 3,000 years, then my priorities in life would have been much different, much different. They would have been much different. But since I know that maximum 60 to 70 years is what, right, we can pull on, so based upon that, our priorities should be based upon that, and we should try to move as fast as possible in life. Alright, guys, so now moving on to the next doubt which has been asked by Kiran Jairam. Is asking, sir, can you please do a Pharmcast on commonly repeating topics or MCQs in previous exams? Alright, so Kiran Jairam, that is what I'm doing now. So today, as I discussed the heparotoxic drug, next Pharmcast I'll be discussing the nephrotoxic drugs. So I'll try to, what I'm trying to do is, see, in the entire pharmacology, you have studied these heparotoxic drugs in a scattered manner, right? So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to collage them, or put them all together, so it is easier for you guys to remember. So I'll keep doing that, guys, right? I guess Sunaina Sheikh is asking, sir, I have got some percentage, 77.75 out of 200 in DAMS CBT, and in Marrow is still 160, around I'm halfway my first revision. I'm getting very much demotivated. Is there a hope for me to get within 10,000 rank in NEET PG? So then not only 10,000, you can easily get around under 5,000 to a rank of 1,500, 2,000 is very much achievable. I've told you, right? When I was giving the grant test, at my time when I was giving the grant tests in these institutes, before completing second revision, forget about your first revision. Before completing second revision, I was not able to score even 50%. But remember the day I completed my second revision and I gave my, grant test, my rank was somewhere under 1,000, so 500 something was my all India rank. So that is what it does from all of a sudden from not qualified to rank 500. So that is the magic that revision does. But conditions applied, you should be revising, honestly. Revision does not mean just looking at the pages. I mean, see, when you revise something and after some time you close your eyes, you should be able to recall all those things. Now, if you're not able to recall, then what is the use of revision? That means in the exam you'll go and you'll be blank, right? You'll not be able to find out. You'll be confused mostly between 2 options, 3 options, and that tells us regarding inefficient revision. So revision has to be, productive. And as I have said, for people who cannot retain things for a longer period of time, what you need to do, you need to revise as you're revising, which means what? Today when I'm revising, I'll keep one hour at least to revise whatever I have studied yesterday and day before yesterday. So what I'll do is, like, in 1 hour, 40 minutes I will flip through the pages and go through the pages that I've revised yesterday, and 20 minutes I'll briefly overlook whatever I have studied day before yesterday. Now guys, if your performance is not increasing, please try to do this. I've told many times, guys. There was a student who, at that time we used to have AIPG and Tamil Nadu PG, right? And there was a student who, despite doing everything, he got rank in AIPG 6,000. And he said, sir, I've tried everything, but I'm not able to increase my rank, improve my rank. Where am I going wrong? Then they asked him, what is the problem you're facing? So he said to me, sir, I'm not able to recall things, some of them properly, so I'm confused between 2 options most of the times, and I go for the wrong option most of the times. So I asked him that the Tamil Nadu PG was, he contacted me in the month of Jan, I think, and Tamil Nadu PG was in the month of March. So I asked him, you take your notes and revise your notes and revise while you're revising, right? The way I told you, right? You need to revise, then revise. So he did that. You won't believe. He was 6,000 rank in AIPG. Tamil Nadu PG, he got rank 60, right? And he messaged me, I think last month, that he completed his MS Orthopedics from Madras Medical College, I think. So you can see, guys, it's all about strategy, right? So you have to take out that extra 1 hour where you need to revise whatever you have revised yesterday, day before yesterday. That helps a lot, guys. Take it from me. I used to do that specifically for volatile subjects like biochemistry, pharma, and micro. These 3 subjects. Micro was on my tips, right? Any microbe you ask me, I would fire like a bullet. And I had to devise this plan. Otherwise, I was drowning in micro. And then micro became one of my strongest subjects. So I know what kind of change it can do, and that is why I can tell you with confidence. Alright, guys, so the last doubt here has been asked by Kiran Jairam is asking, sir, you said for cerebral edema, acetazolamide as drug of choice, but then you said mannitol is drug of choice. See, for cerebral edema, mannitol is the drug of choice. When I talked about acetazolamide, I told specifically it is drug of choice for mountain sickness, right? And that mountain sickness is because of cerebral edema. So I didn't say it is drug of choice for cerebral edema. I just told you the cause of mountain sickness. But for cerebral edema per se, the drug of choice is mannitol, guys. Alright, guys, so that's all for today's Pharmcast. And if you guys have any doubts you want me to cover in these weekly Pharmcasts, which I'll try to record next Monday, then you let me know your doubts in the comment section, guys. And I'll try to cover them in the next Pharmcast. And I would like to thank all of you for your nice comments in the last Farmcast. I was overwhelmed, guys, by your response. So take care. Bye bye. All the best. This was Dr. Ranjan with you.